Hello and welcome to Read with Pride, a podcast focused on LGBTQIA+ literature brought to you by the Ocean County Library's Ocean Pride Committee.
So this is a trigger warning for this episode. There is drug use, eating disorders, sexual assault, and emotional abuse. Please read and listen to this episode at your own discretion. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to another very exciting edition of Read with Pride. I'm one of your intrepid co-hosts, Frank, he, they, and I am joined today by...
Your other intrepid co-host, Lexi, who goes by she, her.
And I'm Gabby. I'm just here for the vibes. I also go by she, her.
All right, and today we are reviewing Being Ace, a young adult fiction anthology edited by Madeline Dyer. Now, we picked this book because, if all goes well, this should be coming out in February, the season of love, and we thought,
Yeah. Let's do some anti-love.
Or even
Jason. I love a Jason. I don't know.
Platonic love, mayhaps.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to highlight the asexual and aromantic community because there's a broad world outside of romantic love. And in general, I feel like ace stories don't get a lot of representation. Was wondering, like, my friends, my guests, my host, how many other ace stories have you come across in your time as a reader?
Little to none. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head, it's still on my TBR, which is constantly growing and never ending, but it's fine, is Dear Wendy, which is a YA novel that came out relatively recently, but it's about these two girls who are both Aro Ace, and they run like dueling podcasts, I think. Or something like that.
I know this because I remember when this book came out and I was like, that's so cool, and I also have yet to read it. That it was very specifically dueling like romantic advice columns.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
And they become very good friends.
Yes.
Okay.
I've read some ace stories. The things that jump out to me are Ace is Wild by Amanda DeWitt, which is all about a group of friends who met on an ace support forum and end up doing a good old-fashioned heist in Las Vegas to prove one of the members' mother's innocence in a big embezzlement case.
Classic story.
It's actually very heavily based off of King Arthur.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, and In the Lives of Puppets by T.J. Klune.
Yes.
Both of those books, I think very importantly, say ace or asexual in the text.
Yeah.
There have been other stories that I've read where things have been heavily implied.
Right.
But
yeah.
Those are the two that jump out at me as, oh, this was an important and central part of the character.
So let me ask you, because answering that question to you, I have not come across reading naturally for like books that specifically say ace. I've always sought them out. So like there's been books where you're like, you know, it's heavily implied but the labels aren't used. Did you seek out these stories or did you come across any of them organically?
I came across the T.J. Klune book organically because I'm a big fan of the author, and I have since found out that I believe they also identify as ace or demi. And since then, that's been a major part of their body of work. Ace is Wild, I remember picking up specifically because I wanted to read a book about asexuality and asexual characters, because I had been going through my list of books that I had read and giving, you know, Pride recommendations, and I realized that I had this glaring hole where it's like, yeah, I've got lesbians, I've got gay men, I've got bisexual individuals, I've got trans people, I've got non-binary people.
Right. Ace is always like the forgotten letter in the alphabet.
Yeah, because people sometimes don't want to count it as the A.
Yeah. Well, that is a whole other thing too, and I think this brings me to a good part, which is DYT, define your terms. For listeners who are not aware, we are going to be using some labels. You know, there are things such as like, you know, gray romantic, gray sexual, which is more vague, more amorphous. For the, you know, podcast today, asexual, you lack sexual feel attraction, although again there is a scale, a spectrum.
I would even say, like, it's not even that you lack something.
No, yeah, it's true.
And that's why we're talking
That
today.
That is true.
We're here for growth, baby. But rather just individuals who identify as being on the asexual spectrum don't experience sexual attraction. That is not the same thing as not being able to fall in love or experience love. So there is a group of people who identify as aromantic or aro. I think earlier we said Aro Ace. Those are people who do not experience romantic love or sexual attraction. But people who are aromantic are still very capable of deeply loving their friends, their family.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I still agree it should be aro, because aromantic instead of arrow. But yeah, I know. And then I think it's worth mentioning too that on that scale are a bunch of other identities, like Demi and Frey. I think a lot of times Demi is not specifically named, but is something that's very common, I feel like, in literature, which is you need that connection to be built before you have a attraction to someone, which again, I think is prevalent in a lot of literature, just not labeled. Is there anything else that we feel like we should kind of name or define right now?
Allo?
Oh, true. There's allo.
So there are people who are ace and there are people who are allo or allosexual. Allosexual is someone who does experience this kind of attraction. So if you are not asexual,
it's the opposite of ace.
You are allo. In the same way that if you are not transgender, you are cisgender.
Yeah.
There you go.
And those are our defined terms. Yay!
All right, so I know that we all kind of connected with different stories, maybe some the same. Does anybody off the bat have any favorites or least favorites? Because I have both.
Gabby, what are your strong ones?
The Third Star, where the three main characters are like adrift in space after being attacked, and there's like a giant space wolf that they come across, and it's not explicitly stated, but I feel like they're in a polyromantic relationship.
It is
of sorts.
explicitly stated.
Explicitly? I might have missed it.
No, that it is explicitly stated that our main character is Ace and Aro and autistic.
Yes.
And the other two characters, Brenna and... You're checking now?
Yeah.
All right. That our protagonist was in a queer platonic relationship with both of them, and that this guy and this girl... Leo, Brenna, and what was the... Orion.
Like the star.
Yes. All right. So Leo and Brenna are dating.
Yes.
They are each also both in a queer platonic relationship with Orion.
There it is.
Now, do you want to define queer platonic?
So queer platonic is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You and other queer identifying people are not really in a romantic relationship, but you are very strongly bonded with each other, and you love each other in a strong platonic
love without
way.
the romance.
Yeah, love without the romance.
I try to explain it as like best friends plus.
Yeah.
Only $19.99 a month.
Yeah, I also really loved that story. I, love queer platonic stories because I feel like friendship is so frequently downgraded and not taken as seriously.
Yeah, in this society, it's very, very prominent that romantic love takes the primary value in relationships. It's like, your whole life is kind of based around finding partners, making families, having kids, getting married, all of that stuff, where it's like, well, why can't platonic relationships and friendships be just as or more valuable?
There's there's a book that came out that I know we have at the library called The Other Significant Others, and we'll put that in the description. That is all about more modern explorations of people who have, you know, these non-romantic life partners. And the fact that you definitely, hello listener, you definitely have a friend, or you know someone who has someone who's like, oh, that's my mom's best friend.
Yeah.
And if my mom's spouse ever died, they would simply live together and they would just be besties in a cottage and not have any problems ever again.
I think it's Kevin Smith who popularized the term hetero life mate, where, you know, Kevin Smith of Clerks, Jay and Silent Bob fame, is very, very much in a lifelong friendship with Jay and Muse, his partner in crime, and he calls it, like, you know, we're hetero life mates in every sense except romantically and sexually. Like, we are together for life.
Yeah.
I think I've heard every single one of my friends at some point or another, myself included, to their queer platonic best friends be like, listen, if we're not married by 35, we're all gonna marry each other and we're gonna live together.
Yeah.
Health benefits and all, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because of this centering of romantic relationships, so many people view themselves as failures if they aren't married by 35.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this the aceness of this anthology, I think, really helps to explore what are the other important things in life when that isn't something that you're seeking.
Right.
Like, there's a bunch of stories in this anthology that very specifically focus on either not wanting to get married or feeling like a failure because you don't want to get married.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the very first stories, actually, I believe it was how to...
Is it the abusive relationship?
No. We can talk about that after. No, it's How to Love a Sidewinder, where we have we have a Chinese American protagonist who thought that she was in a queer platonic relationship with another woman, and they had been living together, and she thought everything had been going great, but she's aromantic and asexual. And when this actually came up with that partner, the other partner was outraged that it had all been platonic. And
yes, that is something you really need to be on the same page with.
Yep. If you, on page 8, it says, like, what do you mean it's all been platonic for you? Trin had demanded. Zhao Ying had just looked back blankly, shrugged. You say you love me almost every day. Yeah, because you're a close friend.
Mm-hmm.
Cursed, mutual, romantic, true love is something that seems to plague Zhao Ying, and she comes to her mother saying that she's sorry, that she feels like a failure because even though she had this wonderful relationship, it wasn't right. It didn't fit into the world's boxes. And luckily in this story, it does have a happy ending in that the mom is very supportive and just says, I don't care. Just come and visit.
And this book, something to keep in mind is this book is YA. So almost all of the characters, the main characters, are exclusively in their teens. And there's stories like that one that are a good primer for how to have relationships. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're a teenager reading this book, it's a good taste of different flavors of relationships and reactions and all kinds of ways to live your life.
And also all the kinds of ways that you might want to avoid.
Certain things. Not live your life.
All right, so then let's talk about the story with the abusive relationship.
So this story is about...
I think it was called No Such Thing as Just.
Yes.
By Kay Hart.
So it's No Such Thing as Just by Kay Hart. This book piece is about a non-binary character who is in a, as we find out, emotionally abusive relationship with their partner, and then they also have a best friend who is a drag queen come into play. And something that I noticed throughout the book is that it really touched on the feeling and the idea in our culture, in the world, that if you are ace, there is something wrong with you. Like, or the idea that you are ace because something happened to you, which is very prevalent. You know, either you went through some sort of trauma or a bad relationship, an attack, something that caused you to be ace instead of just simply existing as an ace person. Because we don't do that same thing, right? Like if you are gay or trans, there is some of that, but I feel like it's still a lot less than people who say they're ace. Would you guys agree?
I definitely do. I think all of the short stories in this kind of touched on that ideology that there's something wrong or something's broken. There isn't. There's nothing wrong with being on the ace spectrum. I know myself being on the ace spectrum, I'm not ace because something happened. I did experience sexual attraction at some point in my life, and then it just kind of slowly died off, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this is happening now, and that's totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Speaking as someone who is not ace, I remember talking about asexuality with a really bad therapist.
Oh, no.
Who, when I explained that a close person in my life was ace, her response was, oh, like a fish?
What? What? Okay, see, I've heard the plant thing a lot, where it's like, you know, plants.
This is why this has stuck out in my memory.
That's super weird.
Yeah.
I think it's time to name and shame.
If this was a personal podcast, yes. Since this is a library podcast, no, that's
Just
a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's the idea that, like, maybe, like, even in the definition that we started with, you lack something.
Yeah.
That is, to be clear, the official stance of this podcast is that if you are ace or aromantic, you are not lacking anything.
Yeah.
You're wonderful.
Yeah.
And you deserve to be supported and loved and experience joy in whatever form you seek that is safe.
And I think it's also important because this kind of shows you, or at least teens reading this book, you know, there are way more forms of abuse than just physical abuse. Just because there's that aspect that's not there does not mean that this is not abuse. The boyfriend is very emotionally abusive and manipulative, and thank God for the main character, whose name is Halcyon's best friend, because she really comes in clutch there.
She absolutely does. You can always trust a drag queen to have the most cutting remarks.
Amen.
And I hated the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because he took some... Halcyon is going through a very rough time in their life. They are on a lot of medications for their depression and anxiety. They are not really close with a lot of people, and it seems like their support structures have been winnowed away, which is bad. If you have a partner that is shaming you for reaching out to people that aren't the partner, that's bad and gross.
Yeah, it's a classic abuser play, you know, isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Synth is really the lifeline that Halcyon gets to cling to, that is this consistent source of support and love and honesty to help Halcyon remember, oh no, the things that I'm feeling and experiencing are real.
Yeah,
that
a lot of validation.
A lot of validation that, you know, the things that I thought were bad are.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of validation. Especially because, you know, the best friend is a couple years older. I think early 20s was mentioned. So it's that trope of like the older friend kind of taking the younger friend under their wing. And it really is a lifeline in this story.
Yeah, and another very important thing I want to discuss is that in this story, the terrible toxic boyfriend Chris does at some point see a therapist and describe the situation and gets
they went to the same one you did. The same awful
one.
The fish doctor.
The fish doctor, and said, I spoke to a therapist, you know, they said that this is emotional abuse and that I shouldn't stand for it. That Halcyon's preferred mode of existence is inherently this terrible thing, and if this really important person in your life is saying that this thing about you is hurting them, abusing them, that's going to destroy you.
To the point where the boyfriend sent them an anonymous letter in the mail being like, I know what you are. If she knew, she wouldn't like you either.
And I think it's
incredibly messed up.
Yeah, and it's important to note too in this story that the boyfriend is the only person they've told that they are Ace, which is devastating. Like, can you imagine the first person that you are revealing an extremely vulnerable part of yourself completely rejects you? It's devastating.
Yeah. I've had that happen.
Oh,
when I first came out as Ace, I was in a relationship at the time, and at the beginning she was very supportive. She was like, okay, that's totally fine. Everything's going great. 6 months down the line, there were other things that happened in between, but me being Ace was like the predominant factor of her being like, I can't do this. I need to leave.
This reminds me of another YA Ace book that I read that came out in the last 2 years called Thanks for Listening by... the last name I think is Honan?
I think so. That sounds familiar.
I'm writing it down.
I know the title.
Yeah. Where our main character, I believe she is a radio host or a theater kid, or both, and is Ace and starts dating this girl who left her old school supposedly because something inappropriate happened, and this new girl is coming in with a very licentious reputation. And there's a lot of external conflict because so many people are talking about their relationship, which is going great and continues to go pretty well throughout the entirety of the book, with so many people saying, oh, well, a girl like that would never be happy with someone who's Ace. So this is never going to last.
I've heard that a lot.
It's gross.
Yeah, it's definitely something that gets said a lot. So before we kind of move on to other stories, is there anything else you guys want to mention about this story?
I want to set the boyfriend on fire.
Yeah, I think we all do, collectively. Yeah, garbage person.
Drop kick him into the sun.
But we don't support burning books.
Never.
Absolutely not.
Never.
I really liked actually the immediate next story in the anthology, which was Smells Like Teen Virgin.
The vampire one.
The vampire Buffy the Vampire Slayer story.
I have a question because I was going to launch into this. What is our favorite? What is our least favorite? Is this your favorite?
See, the way that you ask that makes me really nervous to answer one way or the other.
No judgment on this story. I was thinking of the ones I want to say later. So no judgment on this.
Is this my favorite or least favorite? No.
Okay. Smack dab in the middle.
It's one that I enjoyed, and it's right next to the book, the story we just finished talking about.
Yeah.
So I was reminded of it, and I did really appreciate the discussion that the book was able to have, or the story was able to have, surrounding the concept of virginity. Yeah,
which again is another important topic, I think, in teen books that not always represented in specific lights.
There was another YA anthology that I just read for a different book club.
Look at you.
Oh
my God.
Crushing it.
Thank you. My reader's advisory game is great.
It is.
So the YA anthology is called Losing It. It is a collection of stories all about losing your virginity, having sex for the first time. And there are some stories in this book that I felt, especially this story, that I felt immediately connected with the other. Yeah. That in this story, this very clearly Buffy the Vampire Slayer inspired world. Yeah. We have our teen slayer who is about to become a full slayer and come of age, but virgin blood. That's just like catnip for monsters.
It's too delicious.
And so our protagonist's mom has swung kind of all the way in the other direction of, instead of being like, well, young Missy, purity culture. It's like, you just have to, find a nice person. Doesn't matter who, and doesn't matter what you do, you'll know when it happens.
Yeah.
Our protagonist is very concerned, very stressed. She wants to be a slayer. She wants to do a good job. She has been experiencing the fact that all of these monsters are making what should be a very simple cases much harder. And eventually, she goes through the process of summoning a succubus to try to make the situation easier. And when the succubus comes, they're very confused because our protagonist is someone who's asexual and sex averse. That it's not just a, this isn't for me. It's a, this makes me a little nauseous and I'm going to throw up. And the succubus is confused. It's like, yeah, the sex repulsed really don't summon us. What are you doing?
Why am I here? Are you okay?
And they end up having this really wonderful, affirming conversation.
Yeah.
And it helps our protagonist break down the concept that they, in this case, instead of there being something that they are lacking, there's this extra thing that they can't get rid of. And ultimately, they are able to release the notion that there is this super special secret thing that is keeping them some particular way, and they're able to not only become a fully fledged slayer for themselves, but it also is set up to make the lives of slayers all over this world better.
Yes. And I think it's important to note, because you touched on a little bit, this anthology touches on a lot of taboo topics. Besides purity culture and virginity, there's also talk about drug use. There's talk about drinking. There is a, to me, very potent story about eating disorders and being in treatment. So this book does cover a lot of very important topics for teens, and could be the first introduction to a lot of these things, because these stories are very real.
Yeah.
Except the space wolf.
Well, look, we can't have everything.
Speculative fiction, if we will.
Yeah.
Space is absolutely terrifying. We don't know what's out there. We don't know what's in our own oceans.
Yeah,
okay.
We don't.
We could have a space wolf.
We could. Thank you.
I'd love one.
Are you a teen in 8th through 12th grade? Are you looking for a dress for your junior or senior prom? Or perhaps a spring formal or 8th grade dance? Then keep these dates in mind. This March, the Ocean County Library is returning with the annual prom dress giveaway. The prom dress giveaways allow you to take home the dress of your dreams for free. Simply come to one of our participating branches, find a dress, and take it home. The giveaways will be from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Toms River branch on Monday, March 9th and Tuesday, March 10th, the Little Lake Harbor branch on Tuesday, March 17th and Wednesday, March 18th, and finally, the Jackson branch on Wednesday, March 25th and Thursday, March 26th. This year, there will be a kickoff event at the Toms River branch on Saturday, March 7th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. For more details, check out our website at theoceancountylibrary.org. Visit your local branch or call us at 732-349-6200. We look forward to seeing you then.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about favorites.
Yes.
There's the other side of the coin.
There sure is.
Oh boy.
We're gonna say first that writing is an act of love, and everything's it's not an easy thing to write a story and put it out there.
And get it published.
That's really cool, and none of the things that we say are personal attacks on the authors.
They are not.
That being said, one of the strengths and weaknesses of anthologies is that not every story is for everyone.
Exactly.
Did any of these stories maybe fall flat?
I fear
that you didn't like?
For me personally,
yes. And I want to reaffirm what Frankie was saying, because I give major props to the author for writing, for putting things out there, for getting published. And I have I have two opinions on this. Me reading this story as a teenager would have the opposite thought, I think, of what I thought now. So the story that I'm going to talk about is The Hazards of Pressing Play by Lara Amin. And prose in this, it talks about a wheelchair user. It talks about friendships that are toxic. Mm-hmm. It talks about relationships that are influenced by those toxic relationships and bad friends. So that was great. And then it lost me a little bit because it goes into a plot line that for me was a little over the top. Like it borrowed from a lot of tropes, but they mushed it together in a way that just seemed like too much happening in a short story.
Yeah.
Like there's kidnapping, there's like ransom notes, there's
people laying traps in
there's
the woods.
traps, someone like in a cabin, like it's
like if Scooby-Doo was written by the CW.
Yeah, kind of. And like and like okay, so
for a teenager,
and that
maybe that's great.
But that's what I mean. Like that all I've just said as an adult looking back, that's what I see now. As a teenager, I think I would have loved this story. I think I would have been like, yeah, representation, and I would have like gotten along with the hijinks. I think the unique relationship between main characters would have, like, you know, it would have got me interested. Looking as an adult, it's a little much for a short story.
It is, you know, a sapphic asexual romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Where we have, you know, a disabled wheelchair using protagonist who is shown to be very capable. At no point is she defeated by her disability, even though there are some very real logistical complications that come up.
Yeah.
We have a best friend who's also Ace.
Yep.
And we have, again, I think it's really important to talk about how it's not just romantic relationships that can be toxic.
Yeah, there's that too. Yep. And I think, because this has the, also has the trope of like the friends hate the partner, where it's like, you know, your best friends, for whatever reason, hate the partner. So it went into that a bit. I also want to say too, I liked that the main character, she talked about she's asexual, and then she also says she's biromantic, which is you are attracted to more than one gender romantically, which was really interesting because it was good to have that laid out. I also, all of the things I just said, I do think too, if this was fleshed out into a full book and the plot was like dragged out and stretched and there was more added, I think this could have been a much more gripping story. Like I would have loved to hear more about the main character, like what is it like to be a wheelchair user in college? She talked about in high school, she was the only person in her high school. And then she went to college where there's only a few people. I would have loved to have heard more about the experience of being a teenager for your first year at college, navigating your disability, navigating these relationships and the toxicity and all of that. So that's what I had to say about that one.
I will give it props for the biromantic asexual aspect of it. Because I think a lot of the times, and with a lot of these stories, the character's asexuality is often tied in with some form of aromanticism. Yeah. And I think that's like the most... Doesn't always match up. Yeah, I feel like that's a very common denomination of identity and sexuality is Aro Ace. Yeah. But for like someone like me who is gay and asexual, like this is like, oh my god, asexual people in relationships, I never see that anymore.
Right. People tend to put things in boxes when it's like, okay, these two things are not inherently mutually exclusive. It's just, it doesn't always work out like that. And it's, you know, it's real life. Like there's different ways that people exist.
Yeah. But the plot definitely needed like 100 more pages.
Yeah, it did. There was a lot of smushed in this. But yeah. Now, since I just went off on that, did either of you have a story that you did not totally vibe with? Or were they all kind of had pros and cons for you?
I think a lot of them had pros and cons. The one for me that was really difficult to get through was Nylon Bed Socks by Madeline Dyer.
I have a lot to say about this too.
Not because of the tale itself. I actually really enjoyed the tale of this girl who has an eating disorder and is struggling with her asexuality. You know, her doctors are telling her, like, you know, that's not real. Something's wrong with you. Trying to make friends with another character who is also Ace and in the hospital wing with her. I think just because of the way my autism brain is, the fact that it's in
verse.
in verse rather than prose. Like, it definitely took me a couple tries to get through each page and like fully understand what was being said.
It was an interesting choice, I thought, to include a verse. Like, and I love stories in verse. I love them. Ellen Hopkins forever.
Yep.
But it is interesting that they did, and it's in the beginning of the book, more towards the beginning. But yeah, I thought that was super interesting.
I also think it's really interesting that it is the only story in verse in the entire book.
It stands out.
I think that the story being presented in verse helps to emphasize the ephemerality of the character, that she's not even taking up the full page.
It's and I think that speaks to it a lot. It's very interesting. To give a little bit more context to this story, which actually was written by the editor of this book, so I think that makes it stand out even more. Something to go a little background, this is from the point of view of a girl who is in treatment for her eating disorder. It also has flavors of dissociative identity disorder.
Yes.
And this story it was one of the most, I have the most notes for this, the most striking stories in this book for me, because there's so much to talk about. And I think eating disorders a lot of times show up for the first time and very strongly in teenagehood. So I think people can really relate to this. I will say it is very triggering for people who come from an eating disorder background, or who have had a bad experience with treatment or with SA. So something to know going into it. There's also a lot of coded words for people in the eating disorder community. So that's something to, did you guys notice that a lot of her other identities had eating disorder names?
I spent a lot of time on Tumblr in the early 2010s, and oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I actually did not catch that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
This, I will say again, this was a hard one for me to get through, not because of the quality of the story, but in many ways because it was so well executed. That this is a hard to read part of the book, because it is an incredibly difficult and tragic situation. And it really seems like there's the saying, when all you have is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail. That everything that was going on in our main character's life kept getting brought back to, oh, you have this eating disorder, so everything else that you're experiencing has to be a symptom. It has to be connected. And therefore, it's disordered. It can be fixed.
Right.
And pushed her to retreat more and more inward until there was nothing left.
Yeah, it's very poignant. And honestly, I'm going to put it out there that I think this is one of, if not the strongest stories in the book. And just really for me, because the author of, the main character in this story the voice is so unique and different. It's just very, very, I don't know, different than the other voices. Yeah, there was also that trope of being other, because she had things going on, but also because she was Ace. So there's that, like, I'm not a human. I'm treated as other because I am different. Yeah, it was very, very interesting in that. But yeah, it was a very powerful story. But yeah, so I thought it was really interesting that all of the personalities had different names, different, identities and, attitudes. It was very interesting.
And to just come back to the dissociative identity disorder, there's no clear mention of plurality or DID, but it's not labeled, but our protagonist is talking about all of the different girls who are heavily implied to be parts of her. And dissociative identity disorder often happens when a traumatic incident was so bad that the only way the brain could protect itself was by splitting in some way and keeping that horrible, terrible thing completely separate.
Yeah.
That is not just a repressed memory, that is someone else's problem. And the other experiences that our protagonist had before going into treatment may, and honestly almost certainly, contributed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is obvious in the writing. It's a big part of it, and you know, this is another one of the stories that I wish was a full-fleshed book, because I think it would be very powerful as a full-fleshed novel. But yeah, there's a lot of different identities going on within her, just herself, but also, you know, with her mother and who she is to other people. Yeah, I really liked this. I really, you know, I really bonded with this story and really related. It was very interesting.
I like that even in the moments where she's not explicitly talking about her eating disorder and she's talking about something else, it will still come up in the form of like a food that she's just mentioning in passing, and immediately under it's like 100 calories for 10 grams.
That's why I'm saying it's very triggering if you come from an eating disorder background, because, you know, it does mention, like, you know, I grab a nectarine, 44 calories and 100 grams. Like, it is very telling that her brain is very disordered at this point. But yeah, no, it has a lot of interesting, just a lot of really interesting writing styles too.
Yeah. To jump off of that, something we were talking about before we started recording was that there are a lot of YA anthologies, but they're not really picked up a lot by our teen patrons, because many teens tend to associate short stories with homework and schoolwork. And I am real bummed out by that because there are so many phenomenal YA anthologies that explore all different facets of existence. There's, I think it's like Transmogrify, that's specifically trans magic stories.
There's a Twisted Tale anthology, which is a bunch of like Disney what if short stories.
There's All Out 1 and 2, which is just a bunch of gay story or LGBT and queer stories. There's so many.
Yeah.
And Being Ace is one that I think slots really well into that canon of YA anthologies that force you to think.
Yeah.
There's no simple way to say, oh, this is a good book for XYZ. Because, obviously, you'd be like, this is a good book for if you're curious about the Ace experience, because there isn't just one monolithic Ace experience being presented. If you want to learn about it, if you maybe want to, better support a friend or colleague or what have you. But this is also a collection that includes magic and space.
Let's talk more about the space one too.
Okay.
Like as the topic.
Sure, yeah, we can talk about space.
I'm sorry to interrupt you though.
No, I'm so awake.
I know. I'm so excited.
I wanted to talk about one of the other stories we haven't touched on yet, which is Give Up the Ghost.
Oh, yes. Okay, it's another one I have notes on.
That one was my favorite.
Yeah, I could see that. Go ahead, Frankie.
Yeah, so Give Up the Ghost was all about a character who lives in a weird town where, for some reason or other, if you go to the graveyard at a specific time, then you can speak with the spirits of the dead. But you have to leave by a certain time, otherwise you can never return.
There are specific rules.
And you have to stay on the path, because otherwise you will get pulled into the forest and become kind of a poltergeist.
Like a zombie poltergeist thing, because you're not dead, but you're not alive. Like, it's a very purgatory, scary space.
Yeah, and I think that the story definitely had some strengths in that there were a handful of rules that were very clear and very important, and the rest of it was just, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And it didn't try to get into all of those mechanics in a limited format, which I thought was very good. I thought that was a great choice. I loved the protagonist of this story. I really felt like they were relatable. I felt like they were dealt a rough hand and doing their absolute best in a kind of impossible way. That how do you, as a teenager, go through your list of suspects who you think may or may not have killed your best friend in a hit and run?
Yeah. Again, this should have been a full-fledged book.
I would read this in a heartbeat.
Devoured it. Yep.
I thought that it was really beautiful. I think it really centered on friendship and the importance of platonic love.
Yeah.
And also that some people suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did really like that this was one of like maybe 2 or 3 stories in the anthology where the main character's asexuality wasn't a main part of the plot. It was just kind of, you know, I'm ace, I'm a little bit weird. Here's the actual plot that's going on. Murder and mystery.
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
And like there's some hints of, oh, you know, the people in the town think that because I'm different, I can connect with the spirits. And it's just, no, we don't really know why. I'm just here.
I'm going to disagree with you guys a little bit to spice things up. I do think that Ace was a big part of the storyline, but I think it complemented the main plot and her sexuality. Like, I think they went together evenly.
Okay.
And I do think, like, and we've talked about this idea on previous episodes, where there is a connection between being queer and the spirits and, like, the, you know, mystical and all of that stuff. Like, there's definitely a tie-in with that. And yeah, she is seen as very different. And I actually have a quote that I really liked, which is that the town people, this is what they thought: I could navigate the woods safely because I was Ace and therefore a little bit like the dead themselves. Super
like a
interesting.
Fish.
Like
a fish. I still don't understand that, but whatever. Yeah, so it's, I feel like it is like the town just views her, as this weird person who is mystical kind of and like different, so that's why she can like traverse the woods and stuff, which ends up kind of being to her advantage because she makes money for college off that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of interesting themes in this story about death and love and the connection. There was a lot of interesting themes.
You know, following off of that, there's another quote where our main character and the spirit of her best friend are talking, and they've found the guy.
Yeah.
And the
38. Lucky 38.
Lucky 38. And the spirit of the best friend's like, this is a dangerous situation. You need to get out.
Yeah.
And the protagonist is saying that, like, well, you know, if I leave right now, I won't be following the rules. I won't be able to come back.
Yeah.
And no one else will do this.
Yeah.
There's going to be a loss of knowledge. And the townspeople assumed complete and utter otherness. There were no good assumptions, only temporarily useful ones. And God, what would they have thought if I weren't the harmless white girl they'd known since birth? If I were Aro? If I were somewhere I wasn't useful? If they realized I loved and wanted but didn't want them?
Mm-hmm.
So our protagonist is very focused on getting out.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes to what we were speaking about, where, you know, people put and place all of the value in you as a person, in your sexuality, in your identity, and your romantic relationships. I feel like that's one of the things people wonder about you one of the first things. And it's like, this anthology does a beautiful job of showing, like, just because I'm not this or that doesn't make me any less valuable. And the fact that she is literally willing to, I don't know, giving up seeing this guy that she is in love with. It looks a little bit different, but it goes in that trope too of like, I would literally die for you, or I would do whatever for you and go to the ends of the earth. And it is sad. It was.
And then you get the Uno reverse of, but would you live for me?
Yeah.
2014 John Green would be eating that up.
I really enjoyed just this conversation because so much of the focus when we talk about queer books is what does happen and different attractions that people do and do not experience. And in this case, this is all about people saying, hey, I'm still a person, even though I don't do this thing at all.
Right. Yeah. And it's not even the most interesting thing about them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a piece of it too. But yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you guys to kind of take a little bit of a turn. I personally thought all, if not most of these stories were very dystopian. I personally hate that genre. I really do. I hate it.
We need to turn the podcast off right now.
I have good reasons. I have good reasons.
You're getting kicked out of the YA stuff.
Look, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I know for sure if there was some sort of world-ending thing, I would be toast immediately. Like the first wave. So it's hard for me to care about dystopian stories. In any case, I thought there was a lot of that throughout. What did you guys think? Did you get that at all? Or are you like, no?
I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I definitely agree that there's some kind of like magic-y, science fiction-y element to pretty much every single one.
I don't know if I would call it dystopian. I think that there was definitely like a lot of speculative fiction. There's some that was just like fantasy or urban fantasy or just science fiction. There were definitely some that were dystopian. Like there was the
space one.
The space one I didn't think was dystopian.
Across the Stars, that one. That's with like the cryo freezing and like the robots.
I was
like,
thinking
they're in a post-apocalyptic world.
I was thinking about No Cure for Doubt as the most apocalyptic one. Yeah. Which is where we have people who were selectively bred to have certain mental traits who were secret, superhuman, secret agents.
Yeah.
I think that one was the most strongly dystopian.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's strong themes of dystopian throughout these stories.
Here's the thing. The one that you hated the most is the only one that has, like, no dystopian element in it whatsoever.
You know what? That's true. That is so true, and I'm just realizing that now. So maybe I secretly crave dystopia. I don't know. Maybe that's why I hate
you need a little zhuzh.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got her.
I definitely think that YA fiction does lean towards a more grandiose world because when you are a teenager, everything feels like the end of the world.
It sure does. Yep.
That, your friend isn't talking to you for a week, end of the world.
Yeah.
That you got a bad grade on a test, end of the world. This person that you had a crush on found out and said something that was not mean, but just a little weird. End of the world.
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of ways to translate the enormity of those feelings into, contemporary realistic fiction.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's, oh no, people aren't believing me, and because people aren't giving me the benefit of the doubt, who aren't understanding that I am the way that I am, everyone's gonna die.
Yeah.
It's also just a good form of escapism. Like, the world we live in is chaotic, and especially as a teenager, it feels like nothing is ever gonna go right ever. So it's just like, screw it, let's go into this science fiction world. Let's go into this fantasy kingdom, anywhere that isn't right here for right now.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I think, back when I was a teenager, like 40 years ago, I read a lot of books that were super similar to things I was going through, but also the complete opposite. Like I mentioned Ellen Hopkins before, who writes in verse on very traumatic, very horrible things, but like it was so captivating to read because I was the opposite of so many of those characters, but I also really related to some of them. But yeah, it is interesting with like the teen genre overall.
When we were figuring out what we wanted to read for our Anti-Valentines episode, we kicked around a couple of ideas, but we landed on this specifically because it had a lot of breadth and depth of the Ace experience. So do we feel like in any of these stories there was like a particularly strong exploration of being Ace, completely separate from was this a good story? Was there something that made you think about the Ace experience differently? I can start if you want, because there were some stories where I was like, well, this has nothing to do with being Ace. And then I realized
it has everything to do with being Ace.
Maybe that's the point. And that I was so used to looking for, I'm so used to looking for like, okay, and we know that this person is queer because of their romantic relationships, that when we had more than one story talking about like the love of your sister or, finding a friend to support you in continuing the family business, that was like, yeah, they don't talk about romantic love because that's not what the story is about.
Yeah, it's not part of it.
And it was definitely a moment where I had to like sit down and kind of take a look at myself and be like, hey, bud, intellectually, you know better than this. And sometimes you need to be reminded that.
Yeah. And like the comment I said at the beginning of this podcast, sometimes you have to be reminded or be aware of like, oh, wait, this is what I'm thinking, saying, doing, like it's all about, like you were saying too, like growing and being like, oh, wait, I'm going to course correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think that was a really nice way of saying it too. And just like any other identity or experience, people are going to be all over the place with being different about it. Like the way you approach being, like, let's just say one way is going to be completely different than the way I might approach things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there were stories that really delved into it, and I definitely felt either like the awkwardness or the comfort or, that weird like teen feeling in some of these stories. Like there were some I thought definitely did a better job, but overall, I think it was a good way to explore.
And there was a wide spectrum of asexuality in and of itself, because it is this big, broad umbrella term. And, we had characters who were like, yeah, I'm Ace, it's just kind of whatever. And there were characters who were like, I am Ace, and the very thought of sexual relations with another person makes me physically ill.
Right. We were saying, and you were just saying, like, there's a huge difference that people don't understand, that sexuality is separate from romantic. And people don't totally get that. And it's like, I think, smash it all together and they just see the most prominent one or one thing first. So if you say you're Ace, I think that's what people see. It doesn't necessarily click with them that you can be biromantic, homoromantic, heteromantic, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely something that I wish people understood more.
Yeah. I think there's also the concept of, like, gender can be very fluid.
Yes.
But sexuality can be very fluid also.
There's a lot
and
of
I think
grays.
a lot of people kind of forget about that almost, or like don't see it as intensely as like gender being fluid.
Yeah.
You figured out that you're gay, you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're never
That's it. You're good for life. It's very much, I mean, things change, feelings change, thoughts change as you are, exposed to more. But yeah.
There's also, I think, a fear that if you change your mind, does that mean you were wrong?
Yeah, I mean, or you failed, or you were lying.
And I think that is a conversation that happens a lot around Ace people, and especially like demi people or gray Ace people.
Mm-hmm.
I just remembered another demisexual romance where it's said on the page. It's called Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. and this is an adult romance novel, and we have a, I want to say, implied bisexual femme love interest and a demisexual man. A demisexual man who is named as Demi on the page.
That's awesome.
And there is a conversation about him learning that is an option.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he might have also been bi. I don't remember 100%.
Okay.
But
Read it to find out.
read it to find out. And
yeah, it's very that's interesting. And I don't know. There's a huge controversial take on labels and whether they are helpful or harmful or something in between. Personally, in this case, I do think it's very helpful to see these labels and these different things named. I think there is power in names.
Mhm.
Not in every case, but in this one, it is very nice to see. And especially if you've never, I can't remember any book off the top of my head I've read where it's been a demi guy that's been named, labeled.
I think all of the main characters in this anthology are either female or female presenting or non-binary.
Non-binary.
I think there's only a couple male side characters. Now that I'm thinking about it, none of the main characters are male or male presenting.
I'll also throw into this mix that whenever you read stories about people who are non-binary, they are usually people who are perceived as feminine.
I have noticed that.
That can be something for another episode.
That could be a future one.
Yeah.
So that being said, does anybody else have any closing thoughts on what we read? Anything that wasn't mentioned, should be mentioned, shouldn't be mentioned?
Buy your friendly local asexual some chocolate or a snack of their choosing.
Garlic bread.
Buy your friendly local asexual garlic bread this Valentine's Day season.
Please, God, we love garlic bread.
But yeah, all right. Well, that was a lovely chat. We're all gonna go get garlic bread right now. Thank you for listening, and yeah,
see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to visit the Ocean County Library's website for more podcasts and events. All the titles mentioned in today's episode can be found throughout the Ocean County Library, free with your library card. Until next time, happy reading.